Fitra Charity. 109. Fitra Charity is a charity that is obligatory for every Muslim who reaches the end of the month of Ramadan and possesses, in addition to their basic needs, property worth at least the NISAB amount. IT is also known simply as Fitra. The Fitra Charity refers to a gift of creation given for the sake of reward. 110. The obligation of the Fitra Charity predates the establishment of ZAKAT as a fard. It dates back to the year when fasting was made obligatory. IT is an act of mutual aid, a means of ensuring the acceptance of one's fast and a path to deliverance from the agony of death and the torments of the grave. IT is a means of meeting the needs of the poor and helping them share in the joy of the holiday. In this regard, the Fitra alms is a charitable act and a duty for humanity. 111. Although the Fitra Charity becomes obligatory on the first day of Eid al-Fitr, starting at dawn, it may be given both before and after this time. By giving it in advance, the poor can meet their Eid-related needs. According to 3 imams, the Fitra Charity becomes obligatory starting at sunset on the last evening of Ramadan. If IT is delayed until after the holiday, this almsdoing does not cease to be obligatory. IT must be made up. 112. The Fitra Charity is obligatory for every free Muslim who possesses property worth the NISAB amount, whether they are a child or insane. If their guardians do not pay this charity from their property, they are obligated to pay it once the children reach the age of legal responsibility or the mentally ill recover. This opinion is held by Imam AZAM and Imam Abu Yusuf. According to Imam Muhammad and Imam Zufar, the Fitra alms are not obligatory for these individuals. If their fathers or guardians pay this alms from their property, they are obligated to pay IT. It is obligatory for the fathers to pay this alms on their behalf. Fathers pay their children's Fitra from their own assets. The threshold, NISAB, refers to 200 dirhams of silver, or 20 miskals of gold, OR, property equivalent in value to these. This property must exceed one's basic needs, debts, the home one lives in, household goods, the horse one rides, and the weapons one carries, and one's family's living expenses for 1 month or 1 year. These excess assets do not necessarily have to be cash or commodities, nor is it required that a full year have passed since acquiring this excess wealth. For every Muslim who possesses this amount of wealth, it is forbidden to collect zakat or accept obligatory alms. It is also obligatory for them to offer a sacrifice. According to the 3 imams, specifically on the day and night of Eid, IT is obligatory for a Muslim who possesses property exceeding the amount of fitra, beyond what is necessary for their own and their family's food, and basic needs to pay the Fitra Charity. 113. The Fitra Charity is not obligatory for a Muslim who dies or becomes impoverished before the break of dawn on the first day of Eid al-Fitr, or for a Muslim born after the break of dawn, or for one who converts to Islam on that day. However, IT is obligatory for a Muslim who dies after dawn. If they have made a will, IT is paid from 1/3 of their estate. IT is also permissible for the heirs to pay IT from their own property. 114. If the amount of wealth subject to the NISAB is lost after the obligation to pay the Fitra has arisen, the Fitra is not waived because the opportunity to pay it had already arisen. ZAKAT, however, is different. In that case, an opportunity allowing for ease is required. 115 IT is also obligatory to pay the Fitra Charity to anyone who is unable to fast during Ramadan due to a valid excuse, such as the sick, travelers, and the elderly who are too frail. 116 Ampere. Believer who possesses the NISAB must pay the Fitra Charity for himself, as well as for his children who are mentally disabled or insane, as well as their young children and the slaves and maidservants in their service. Even if the slaves and concubines are not Muslims, IT is still obligatory to pay Fitra on their behalf. However, IT is not necessary to pay Fitra for slaves and concubines held for commercial purposes, as they are subject to zakat, it is not permissible to pay both zakat and fitra from the same asset. They cannot be combined. As explained above, according to Imam Muhammad, paying fitra on behalf of wealthy children is a duty that falls upon their father's wealth. 117. If the father of a poor child has died or has fallen into poverty, and the child's grandfather, the father's father, possesses the NISAB, the grandfather takes the place of the child's father and pays the fitra. However, according to a widely accepted opinion, it is not obligatory for the grandfather to pay fitra on behalf of this child. 118. A person is not obligated to pay the fitra alms on behalf of his wife or his adult child who is of sound mind. This is because each of these is a legally responsible individual with the right to manage their own affairs. Therefore, if each of them possesses the minimum threshold, NISAB, they are obligated to pay the fitra, alms from their own wealth, just as they would pay zakat from their own wealth. At the same time, charitable giving has a religious dimension. A husband did not marry to take on a religious duty belonging to his wife. 119. If a person pays the fitra for his wife or adult children from his own wealth with their permission, this is sufficient. If they are under his care and dependent on him for their subsistence, it is also sufficient to pay the zakat without their permission. This is because in such a case, permission is deemed to exist by custom. The same ruling applies to other individuals within the family. Permission is required either in fact or by custom, because intention must be present in the Fitra Charity. It cannot be given without intention. Such permission, however, substitutes for the intention. According to Imam Shafi, a wife's Fitra Charity belongs to her husband, even if she is wealthy. The same ruling applies to servants who are not paid a fixed wage. 120a. Person is not obligated to pay the Fitra Charity for his father and mother, even if they are dependent on him for their livelihood. However, if the father is poor but of sound mind, he is required to pay his own fitra. 121 Fitra Charity is paid in specified amounts from 4 types of property, specifically half a SA Iraqi of wheat, which is equivalent to 520 dirhams, is paid. Wheat flour and roasted wheat are also considered equivalent to wheat. 1 say 1,040 dirhams is also given from barley, dried grapes, and dried dates. It is permissible and even more virtuous to give the equivalent value of these items instead. However, if the needs of the poor are better met by these items themselves, then giving them is better. 1122 HERE. The term dirham refers to the Sharia dirham, just as in the zakat nisab. However, there are also those who argue that the dirham measure used according to local custom in each region should be taken as the standard. Since the customary dirham is larger, it is more prudent to pay the fitra alms using it, and it yields greater reward. According to 3 imams, the fitra alms is also 1 SA of wheat. However, the SA referred to here is not the Iraqi SA, but rather the Hijazi, which amounts to 6,931 3 dirhams, 123 wheat, barley, grapes, and dates are fixed measures for the fitra alms. This is because the purpose of these items is to meet the needs of a poor person for 1 day, and these items suffice for that purpose. If a specific amount of money had been specified as the standard, this objective could not have been achieved because the prices of food fluctuate from time to time. That specific amount of money would meet this purpose in some years but fail to do so in others. 124 Fitra Charity is given to the poor in the form of a give, with the same intention as zakat. It may not be given in the form of a meal. This intention may be made either when setting aside the funds or when giving them to the poor. However, it is not necessary to specify that it is fitra when giving it to the needy. 125. It is not valid for those who are related by marriage or parental ties to give fitra to one another. A person may not give his fitra to his wife, father, or son if they are poor. According to Imam Abu Yusuf and Imam Shafi, the Fitra charity may not be given to poor non-Muslims, dhimmis either. The fatwa is also in this vein. This is because the purpose of giving Fitra is to meet the needs of poor Muslims on the day of Eid, thus ensuring that they too can participate in the celebration with joy. This purpose is not achieved by giving Fitra to non-Muslims. However, scholars who state that ZAKAT al-Fitr may be given to non-Muslims argue that the primary purpose of this charity is, without exception, to meet the needs of the poor with the intention of worship. This purpose is also achieved by giving the poor non-Muslims, since the zakat given to them is also an act of worship. 1 SA Iraqi equals 1040 Sharia dirhams and is equivalent to 910 customary dirhams. Therefore, 520 Sharia dirhams are equal to 455 customary dirhams. Ignoring fractional parts, 1,040 Sharia dirhams equal 2,917 kg. 1,040 customary dirhams also amount to 3.33 kilograms. Therefore, 520 Sharia dirhams equal 1.458 kilograms. 520 customary dirhams equal 1.667 kg. 1 kg is equal to 357 Sharia dirhams and 312 customary dirhams if the price of 1 kilogram of a certain item such as wheat is assumed to be 50 lira, then the value of 1.667 kilograms of WAEAT is 1.667 times 50 equals 83 lira 35. Kurush. To 6 person may give their fitra to a single poor person, or they may distribute it among several poor people. Many people can give their fitra to a single poor person, just as they can distribute it among several poor people. However, according to one opinion, a single fitra cannot be given to multiple people. 127 multiple fitras may be given to the needy in a mixed state, whether in kind or in value, with the permission of their owners. There's nitrogen monoxide need to separate each fitra from the others. However, distributing the fitra separately is more in line with Prudence. 128. The Fitra charity should be given to the poor in the place where the obligated person resides. Sending it to other places is disliked. Allah, who is free from all deficiency and excess, knows best, and it is hoped that through the perfection of His generosity, He will grant success and reward